The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
One of my best friends growing up has 3 older brothers, so I know a thing or two about sibling rivalries. And nothing wrong with Jim's coaching career. Jim Harbaugh has won a national championship at Michigan. He took a 49ers team to the Super Bowl. He resuscitated a Stanford program, which was nowhere. So he's a fantastic coach. But across the dinner table, his older brother is 3-0 against him, including a Super Bowl championship and a win last night. And I'm sure that's meaningful. That's a meaningful thing. We'll get into that a little bit, what happened last night in Los Angeles. And are you concerned? I'm going to give you the Kliff Kingsbury second half of the season numbers here in a moment, but it's not a pretty picture right now with the Commanders. And if you look at what has happened over the course of Kingsbury's career, I think it is a thing. I think it's a thing. Now, he chafed at that last week. In fact, I played that yesterday. Let me run back and give you that again, where every Thursday, as you know, the two coaches, the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, give their weekly news conference. And this was a question that was asked. I played this at the beginning of the show yesterday. I think it's appropriate again today as we go deeper into this, that Kliff Kingsbury's teams do not perform as well in the second half of the season. Now, I don't have the exact statistical numbers, passing percentage, run percentage, all that stuff. But it's undeniable what has happened to his teams in second halves of season. So this was an exchange with Sam Fortier of the Post as he wrapped up his news conference last Thursday.
I'm not saying this is happening this year, but historically your offenses have declined a little bit in the second half of seasons. Are you aware of that, and is it important for you to break that trend?
I would have to see what you're talking about historically, like the references, but yeah, I don't have any plans to do anything to break that trend that I know of. Yeah. I mean, I would have to see what years you're talking about. So I was thinking about doing triple option. Is that what you're thinking? I don't know. Yeah, we're going to do what we do.
Yeah, I mean, you got a little snarky there at the end, but here are the numbers as a head coach. 2022, which was the last full year in Arizona, started off the year 3-4, 1-9 the rest of the year. Not that 3-4 is a great start, but and he didn't have Kyler Murray, who was hurt that year, so that's a factor. 2021, though, he's taken the league by storm. They're 7-0 to start the season. The rest of the year, they go 4-7, and that would include a first-round playoff loss. 2020, they start off the year 5-2, 3-6 the rest of the way. 2019, 3-1 to start the season, 2-7 the rest of the way. Not a huge change there, but even back to his college days. 2018 at Texas Tech starts the year 5-2, 0-5 the rest of the way. And if you take all of his numbers as a head coach, both in college and the pros, in the first 7 games of each season, he's 45-24-1 and 18-54 the rest of the way. That is something that I think is important. I think it's something to think about here as they move on, and he can get as snarky as he wants, saying, yeah, we should just run the triple option. But the fact of the matter is, this has been his history. And, this is why there is concern with a team that was on fire at the beginning of the year and now goes into the stretch of the season where it's most important, and historically his teams have fallen off. I said this yesterday that when I was covering the Giants, Bill Parcells always used to say, hey, fellas, we didn't have any women covering the team at that point. He would say, fellas, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And when you talk to marathon runners, they will tell you that when you run, the first 20 miles is like half the race. The second 6 is more like half a marathon at that point. You've only accomplished 50% of what you need to do as you've run 20 of the 26 miles. And they may be feeling that now. Jaden Daniels has played a full college season. Full college season is 12 games minus the bowl game. So he's completed 12 games as a pro, and there may be some things that are, kind of they've caught on to some of the things that he does and some of the things that Kingsbury does, and they're ready for that. And he's kind of indicated that. We played some of that yesterday where he talked about, they didn't have many third and longs at the beginning of the season. Now they're facing third and long a lot of times, and when you're in that position, the numbers don't favor you. In fact, there are some numbers that Sam Fortier has in his story today about that. He says over the first 9 weeks, the Commanders faced third and long at a normal rate, but converted an incredible 36.7% of the chances. If that held up over a full season, it would have been the best conversion rate by any team since 2022. But over the past 3 weeks, despite facing only a few more third and longs, the Commanders' conversion rate has plummeted to 11.1%, which over a full season would be tied for the worst rate since 2020. So there's obviously a decline here, and some of it has to do with the fact that they played two really good defenses in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, but it doesn't explain what happened on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys, whose defense prior to Sunday had been god-awful. And this has got to be something that they work on and are concerned about. Dan Quinn tried his best to put a smile on it yesterday as he talked to the media at his regular Monday news conference. But there is obviously some things to be thinking about there. All right, the Baltimore Ravens in the Brother Bowl, as John beat Jim once again last night. They fell behind 10-0, but veteran team. They came back and they won the game, and they did it on the ground. I've looked at what Derrick Henry has done, and the fact that they hardly ever give him the football, that's criminal. And last night he got it 24 times and rewarded them with 140 yards rushing. That's what you need to do. You need to give 22 the rock, because he is the best I've seen at this, maybe since the days of the big back that, Mike Allstott was a big back. Allstott wasn't as good as Henry is. John Riggins in his prime with a great offensive line looked like that. Jim Brown, and these numbers that he's been putting up, these are Jim Brown numbers. You get 24 carries and you get 140 yards. That's a big pop. Jim Brown averaged over 5 yards a carry for his career at a time when he was Superman compared to the players he was facing. It's a little different now with the size and the speed of the defensive players. At the time Jim Brown played, when he was like 230 pounds, he was playing against 210-pound linebackers. That's not the case anymore, and Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are chewing him up. And Lamar had a huge game last night, threw for 2 touchdowns, and also ran. He ran 8 times for 15 yards, which I'm sure makes them really comfortable. That's the kind of running that they like to see in a win. And he also threw 2 touchdown passes and benefited from a running game which rolled up 211 yards compared to 90 for the Chargers as they won 30-23. And after the game, Lamar Jackson talked to Lisa Salters of ABC.
I believe we finished the game off the correct way. We started off slow, getting out the field. We got to fix that. I believe at the beginning of the season we were starting the game off right, but it was the finish. Now it's like it flipped and switched, whatever, flip-flop, whatever. We just got to fix that, and I believe we'll be where we want to be.
Yeah, you guys did start the first quarter slowly, but what kind of got things rolling?
We just got in sync. We hit the ground running, start making plays here and there, and we just went for what we know.
You went for it on 4th down 3 times tonight. Once inside your own 20. It paid off every single time, but what did you think about the really aggressive play call?
We pretty much knew what type of game it is.
Bro, yeah, top 10. Matter of fact, top 2 and not 2.
That's crazy.
Aggressive play call, going for it on 4th and 1.
Yeah, we the playoff atmosphere. We got the coaches going at it. The head coaches going at it. The brother game. I knew what type of game it was going to be. We already knew that. We got to convert. We did a good job at that, but like I said, we got to start the game off right.
I'm going to get back to the brothers, but Derrick Henry has said that you have opened up his game. Just how has Derrick Henry opened up this offense?
Man, if just like what was happening just then, we started off slow. Derrick Henry get 1 carry and just went for what he knows, man. It can't be stopped, man. That guy's unbelievable.
You talked about the brothers. I know you said all games are personal for you, that this is just another game, but you helped your head coach beat up on his little brother one more time. Just what does that mean to you?
It's pretty cool. I'm a part of history. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Zay Flowers was the one who was interrupting the interview, putting a chain around his neck. And I think it's indicative of the way the teammates feel about him, the way that they rally around Lamar Jackson, who may be on his way to his third MVP. I mean, right now, the betting favorite seems to be Josh Allen, but, if he keeps putting up nights like he did last night, running for a touchdown and throwing for 2 more. Flowers, by the way, their leading receiver, 5 catches for 64 yards. More post-game, and this was Kyle Hamilton. I left all this in to give you kind of a little bit of inside baseball here. Scott Van Pelt is going through the post-game highlights. He's doing interviews with Buck and Aikman from the booth, and he sees that they bring up Kyle Hamilton to sit down with him. So you're going to get the whole thing as Hamilton goes up on the stage that they had built for this and talks to Scott Van Pelt while still mostly in his uniform. He's got his shoulder pads off, but he's still wearing his football pants and comes out and does the post-game at a beautiful stadium. I mean, that's a palace where they play. And this was Hamilton with SVP after the Ravens closed out the victory.
Hi, I'm Scott Van Pelt.
Kyle Hamilton, great to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Big fan.
We've never met. Well, likewise, it's a blast to watch you play, and it's great to visit with you after victory. Kyle Hamilton with us here after you guys get a victory. And we just were listening to Lisa Salters talking to Lamar about it's John and Jim, and there's a lot that's baked into that. Your coach has been there for a long, long time. Never going to let a lot leak out, but what do you think it means to him to go up against his brother and get another dub?
Yeah, I think he does a good job during the week, just downplaying it a little bit,
right?
Not make it about him. But it is history, and we're on the right side of history this time, and it's great to get that dub for him. I'm sure they're going to look back on this years later, and he's going to have bragging rights.
No doubt. I was talking with Joe and Troy about your team, and I feel like you all are built to eat punches. Not that you want to, but you can take a punch, and you come into a place with a team that's playing well. They take a 10-0 lead, and there's zero blink. There's zero panic from your group. Well, culture is such a word that gets used, and I don't think it always applies, but I believe it does with you. Do we see a culture win tonight from your group?
I think so, for sure. And, the Chargers kind of have a Ravens West kind of thing going on right now. They have some personnel people, a lot of players, and coaches. And it was good on good tonight. And, they came out, hit us in the mouth, but the best boxer is not about how hard you can punch, it's how hard of a punch you can take. So that's something, just like you said, culture, it's preached around the building. Just keep going, just keep grinding. It's about the team.
No Roquan tonight. That's a dude that he answers the bell. For him not to be able to go, that others are going to have to step up. And I think, look, we understand that this is a defense that you all have a great rep through the years, but you have taken some punches this year. Mm-hmm. What's the resolve on that side of the ball to carry your end of the bargain?
Yeah, I think, our offense is going to do what they do, and as long as we got 8 on the field, we got a chance.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, no. But no, I think, we looked ourselves in the mirror about halfway through the season and had a bunch of games that didn't go our way. Even though we won them as a defense, we keep a high standard of ourselves. And, we want to keep up that Ravens tradition, having good defenses, and I think we're on our way.
I get that it's not your unit, but 4th and 1 from your own 16, rather aggressive. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you're grabbing your helmet on the sidelines, because, if they get stopped, you're going to have to, bow up inside the red zone. Are you even, how aware are you that the offense is they're going for it from the 15?
I think I was getting ready to go down to where the punt was going to be. Right. But, when you got Derrick Henry in the backfield, I'd probably err on the side giving him the ball. But
actually, Andrews, it was a tush push with Andrews.
Yeah, it was. And they speed break too, and they practice that all the time. It's good execution. But we were joking on the sideline. We were like, your head coaching job's secure if you're making that call. Because if you don't get it, then people are going to be calling for your head. But good decision by Harbs to go for it.
Yeah, I suggested at halftime. There's a Sam Cassell meme that, if you know what I'm talking about, it's like guts, I guess you could say, big guts in that situation. But, hey, it works out, and you guys go down and score a couple of touchdowns. You mentioned if you have 8. You have 8. You see the dude daily. He's just such – there's only one of them. What is it that he brings to your group? Not just the obvious, but just the vibe in the room, the energy in the room. He's a different cat, but I think there's an undeniable energy to him, and I'm just interested in what that's like.
Yeah, I think you guys get to see him on Sundays or Mondays in this case, but I think the most special part about Lamar is he's just a cool guy. Like, he's just a chill guy. He could easily be Lamar Jackson, Hollywood superstar, but he's super down to earth and friends with everybody on the team, knows everybody's name, and I think that helps us as a team play easier, play better with him. And like you said, a football player, we got 8, we got a chance.
You guys have Philly coming in. We were joking, talking to our group. Do you guys ever play anyone that it feels like every game you play is like a playoff game? Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah. Even when other teams not in the playoff hunt,
right.
There's so much parity in this league. It's every week you got to win the game.
Speaking of playoffs, ND, how we feeling? Got a big one with SC this weekend. You all right? You good?
Is it a big one?
Whoa.
Not for us, but sorry, I'm in LA. I
was going to say
security on the way out of here, but no, we're not too worried about them.
I mean, I still don't know what happened to Northern Illinois. Well, that was a long time ago.
I don't even remember that.
There you go. It's a pleasure to be to meet you.
Likewise.
Stay healthy. Happy Thanksgiving. Congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, pleasure to meet you. Kyle Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, Kyle Hamilton. You think he's got a broadcasting career if he wants it after he finishes playing? Wow. The Ravens win that game last night. They're in good shape now. They're 8-4 and actually favored against Philadelphia. That should be a hell of a game. It's a 4:30 national game on Sunday, and we will have coverage of it starting at 4 o'clock as the Ravens try to continue what has been a very, very successful season, trying to nail down a playoff spot and maybe even beat out Pittsburgh for the division. They're going to rematch after Pittsburgh beat them in Pittsburgh last week. So there you go with that. All right, coming up in the next hour, Dan Quinn, what he said yesterday to the media about his sliding football team and more on the Ravens win last night as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. I don't know if you've ever considered this, but have you ever thought about players and what they think of the point spread while they're playing? It's become a bigger deal as sports have gotten in bed with gambling. And Greg Olsen was on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, and that was one of the questions he asked. I thought that was a terrific question and an interesting answer because now more than ever, you got to be thinking about it. And we're getting to the point now where it's getting ugly in cases where people who make bets, get real angry at the players to the point where they harass them on social media and other places. And there have been, a couple of years ago, I remember Westbrook got involved in something when he was with the Wizards with an argument with a fan. It's it's kind of an interesting angle on, not interesting. It's kind of actually scary on this, and who will be the first player who will actually be attacked violently for this. I think it's something that is a slippery slope for sports leagues, but there's a big amount of cash that goes along with the gambling, and it's not going to change. They're not going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Harbaugh Bowl number 3, as you know, goes to John. John won the Super Bowl against Jim when Jim was coaching the 49ers in 2013. And now Jim back in the NFL after winning a national championship at Michigan last year, coaching the Chargers, and they met last night in Los Angeles. Watch the opening of the game. The Chargers went right down the field, and Roquan Smith, who was injured, didn't play last night. Their linebacker is watching from the sidelines, and the look on his face is like, oh, my God, wish I was out there to help him. But even though the Chargers got off to a 10-0 lead, the Ravens came back, and they won the game. And I don't always play locker room speeches from winning coaches. A lot of times there's a lot of profanity in there. Sometimes you bleep it out. John Harbaugh doesn't curse, so you can play this. And it's lengthy here, but I think it's interesting to listen to. You'll hear him reference O.J. That's not, of course, O.J. Simpson. That's O.J. Brigance, who is a former linebacker with the Ravens and is battling ALS as he has for a long time, but I guess delivers inspirational messages to the team from time to time. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of coaches using biblical references and religious references when they're talking to the team. Harbaugh will do that from time to time, and will even talk to the media that way. But this was the 4-minute chunk of what he said to his players, John Harbaugh, after beating Jim last night in Los Angeles, as the Ravens now move to 8-4.
We're going to enjoy this for about 7 hours. Then it's going to be about 6:30 in the morning, and everybody's going to go back to sleep except the coaches. Don't worry, we'll be up. We'll get you a great game plan for Wednesday, right? All right, but we're not going to worry about that right now. I want to share a couple things, then we'll give out some balls here. We're going to need a spike. The couple things that were there, it's amazing how this works. But The first one that was sent was be strong and courageous. If I'm being honest with you, it said finally be strong in the Lord. Be strong and courageous, all right? That's what you all did, man. You are strong, courageous guys. I got so much respect for you. This always has been and always will be a player's game. It's always been a player's game. It's always going to be a player's game. To do what you do, to play the way you play, to put your bodies on the line the way you do, it takes courage, man. It takes strength and it takes courage. And you have strength and courage. Let's keep remembering who we are. And you did tonight. And the second thing was, you talk about being 10 points down. All right, 10 points down. It says, this is the one OJ sent. The vision is coming. If it seems slow in coming, wait. It's on the way. It will come at the right time. Did that happen? 10 points down. Nobody flinched. Nobody batted an eye. All right? Everybody just kept playing ball. Everybody kept trusting each other, believing in each other. Fought our way back. Defense, after that 10 points happened, you guys gave up 6 points. 6 points until that very last drive. All right, you shut those boys down. That's a great job. How about Zach Orr for the whole game?
I got you. Just like Coach said, man, this thing about the players, man, and I appreciate y'all, man, to stay with it, keep fighting, man. We had a soldier down. You guys stepped up and picked it up, man. Let's keep this going, bro, because we just getting started like we talked about, man. Keep it going, all right? Appreciate y'all, man.
How about stepping up and stepping in, having a great game. Malik Harrison.
Hey, I love everybody. I love y'all for believing me this whole week. Let's just get ready for next week.
How about fourth down conversions? We had 3 fourth down conversions, right? And the guy ran like crazy. How about Derrick Henry for 2?
I'm gonna give all the credit to everybody up front who blocking, man. The selfishness y'all have, bro. Only reason why I got those is y'all sold out. Y'all did y'all job for me to do my job. Love y'all boys. Let's get ready for this weekend.
Mark Andrews for the other one. Mark Andrews. Fourth down conversion.
We got better today. We made mistakes, but we're on our way, man. Keep doing your job.
How about a career-long 51-yard TD run, Justice Hill? We're going spike. We're going to go spike on that. We're going spike on the Lions spike. We're going to have
Hey, no speeds, man. Let's just keep winning. Just keep winning.
I love it. All right, that's okay. We're good. How about the onside kick recovery? Could have been a line spike, but we're going game ball. Who was it? Isaiah Likely. Onside kick. Ready to go home. How about the offensive line? George Warhol.
I got one thing to say, guys. Game ball, Coach Harbaugh.
Yeah, that was Eric DeCosta, the GM, giving Harbaugh the game ball at the end. I know it's 4 minutes, but also, it's on the West Coast. They want to get the hell out of there. He mentioned, 6:30 going back to bed. That's probably when the plane landed in Baltimore this morning after the cross-country trip. So interesting they took that much time, and just it was interesting to listen to, for me anyway, hopefully for you, just how Harbaugh conducts his post-game, kind of a high school way of doing things, and giving out the game balls to the guys who are stars. All right, Dan Quinn holds his news conference every Monday or the day after a game, and he's had a chance to look at the tape and so forth. And I thought about this, too, with the way the team has played lately. And it goes back to when Quinn was hired as the head coach back in January, and he was asked about rebuilding. He said, I'm not going to use the word rebuilding. It's going to be recalibrating. And I think everybody at that time felt like, okay, they won 4 games. If they win 6, maybe 7, it's going to be a better year, and they're going to be on their way to rebuilding, which is really what it was. It was kind of a snicker when he said recalibrating. So I think he was able to sell his players on, look, nobody expects anything of us. The media is kind of snickering at us when I say recalibrating, but go out there and have fun, play loose, cut it loose, and let's see what happens. Well, they get to 7-2, and I think, what happens is that people in nonstop talk, including what I do here, you start, hyping it. Whoa, wait a minute. We didn't expect Jaden Daniels to be this good. And look at the great pickups that Adam Peters made, including Frankie Louvu, who was discarded by Carolina, and how well they're playing. And, and you get different players who are cast off from other teams and come here, rather cheaply. And something's happening here. And when they made the move for Marshawn Lattimore at the trade deadline, I don't think if they were not 7-2, they wouldn't have made the move. I don't think Peters, really expected this to be a contending team this year and wasn't giving up valuable draft capital for a veteran with a big contract. But, why not if you're going to be a team that is going to contend, see how far you can go and okay, spend a little bit to get a veteran in here. Well, now they're starting to think, okay, we're really pretty good here, and how far can we go? And, players who have had limited playoff experience, like Terry McLaurin, he made it in his second year, but has played on only, the best team he played on was a 500 team, but mostly losing teams. And now they're not really, playing with house money or not really able to cut it loose. And maybe the fact that they're starting to get the attention as a team that could make some noise in the playoffs has made them tight. And that was what Quinn talked about yesterday when he addressed the media.
I told them early on, I think you have nothing to lose and you're ripping it and going and being aggressive, and all of a sudden you're doing a little better, and now you want it even more and you can get even tighter. And so I just wanted to make sure, let's get back to that. And that falls on every single one of us, as players and coaches, and knowing the execution of all that is all of us together. And that's what I do love about this team. There's not a group that points one way or another. It's just a big collective group. I told them 3 months in and nothing's been decided, and that absolutely fires me up. And you can talk of standards in good times, but now is the time where culture and what you're about is really defined. So you got to live it, and that's what's cool about today as we went through the truth with the guys. So I share that with you about what we did with the team today, and the identity piece, the running, the hitting, the physicality. Just every time we play, I want you guys to see that and feel that, and our fans to see that and feel that. And sometimes you can get tight to want to overtry, and we're not going to do that.
Yeah, tight to overtry, and I think that may be in play here a little bit. And they take the field against a bad Tennessee team, although Tennessee's coming off a big win over Houston. Maybe that feeling returns, and then they'll have a bye week to get healed up for the stretch run. This is more from Quinn yesterday. A lot of the focus, obviously, on the offense. Not the same Jaden Daniels that we saw in the first 9 games of the year. Things have definitely tightened up in the last 3. Tress Way in the first 9 games had 17 punts. He's had 17 punts in the last 3. The offense is clearly not performing the way it did. But Quinn says, hold on a minute, they're not entirely to blame for the slide.
It's not just offense, Sam. So I felt that's why I wanted to say it, because there's an energy that makes the whole team who we are. It's, the big plays on the sideline, the, big special teams hit that makes everybody kind of go crazy, and the energy goes into the next. It's a turnover that turns into points, and the complementary football that goes back and forth. So that type of energy is really from about them doing it together, and it's actually comes from a really good place of them wanting to even elevate further. But the next ceiling that you go to, you can't get tighter as you go. It's almost like you have to express, this is how we always are going to play. This is our identity, and you literally lay it out there about it. Even when the stakes get higher, this is how we do business. And there's a little bit of human nature to that, because you want to be right, and it's really important. But you also have to have the balance, Sam, of we are aggressive, we're fast, we're bold, and let's make sure that comes across every time we play. So it comes from the right spot in their heart to like, hey, this is really important. I want to get it right. But you can slow yourself down by overthinking and over trying on some stuff. And so I want to make sure that part comes alive. And if we make a mistake, it's not about that mistake. It's about how fast can we get back to full speed on the next play and the next rep.
Yeah. And final thing from Quinn yesterday, and Tom Rivera had a column about this yesterday. It's kind of like this is what you signed up for, right? It's a rookie quarterback who's going to go through some growing pains. It's a roster that was redone by Adam Peters, but not with expensive players, kind of second-tier guys. So if you go through a midseason struggle like they're going through right now, you shouldn't be shocked by it. This is Quinn's kind of big picture look on that.
We're 3 months in, nothing's been decided, and that really fires me up because I want to see this identity just, reveal itself about how we play. And those things will play out as we're going. And that's what I want to see from the guys, that the speed, the effort, the finishing. And if we do those things right, Scott, the score will certainly take care of itself. But that's what I want to see. And so can we be so disciplined that we don't look far down the road? And that was part of the message today. Can we just look at this one and go from there?
Yeah, I mean, coaches always say, we only look at it one at a time. We don't look. No, but human nature is, you start looking at the schedule, you start looking at the standings, and in the NFC, they're still in the seventh playoff spot. And the teams that are behind them, as we talked about yesterday, they've already beaten Arizona. Now, Arizona may win the West, but Seattle's also 6-5, and one of those teams is going to win. And, the other one might not wind up as a wild card, depending on what Washington does. Minnesota at 9-2, they look like they're safely in as a wild card at least. They're probably not going to catch Detroit at 10-1. And Tampa Bay at 5-6. They've looked impressive at times, but haven't been consistent enough. So there's all those things, but what he's saying is don't look at that. Don't look at all the playoff prognostications. And, how many years around here do we go into the month of December without meaningful football? Too many. So we're now in a spot where it's going to be late December before, at the very least, and that's if they, continue to fail, which I don't think they're going to lose their next two. But, yeah, it would be full-blown panic if they get to 5 straight losses because they got teams that they should beat. A Tennessee team, they're 5.5-point favorites. It's a 3-8 football team. And then they go to New Orleans after the bye, and, New Orleans is a 4-7 team. They've looked okay at times, but – are they at the beginning of the season was when they were the juggernaut, when they were scoring points. They're not doing it now. So win the next two, everybody calms down, got Philadelphia, and then I believe if you win the next two, lose to Philly, and you beat either Atlanta or Dallas in the last two games, Atlanta's here and Dallas is on the road, I think you're safely in the playoffs with 10 wins. But, it's not as much fun now as it was in September and October, is it? Greg Olsen, who called the Sunday game, the Commanders game, he was on yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. His thoughts on what happened with that crazy ending, plus, again, what he says about playing football with the mindset of, hey, there's actually a point spread here, and there's over-under on what I do, and all those things that go into being a professional athlete. We'll stick with that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Bram's coming up at 11, and I'm going to get to, in a moment, the conversation yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show with Greg Olsen, who called the Sunday game that the Commanders played against the Cowboys and the crazy ending and his thoughts on that. But you may be up to date on this. It's something that developed last night and the wild west of high school sports. And I know some people who coach high school sports, some really good friends. My son played a variety of high school sports, including basketball. And what goes on here sometimes is just adults gone wild, and it really is disgusting in some cases. And what we had, if you've been following this in Fairfax County, Hayfield High School had hired a new coach in the offseason, David Overton, from two-time defending Virginia Class C champion Freedom in February, and he brought in a whole bunch of his players. He brought in 14 players from his team, from Freedom, and 5 players came from private schools, and 5 ninth-grade students transferred, according to an investigation that was done. And they blitzed through the season. They lost one game, but it was to a top-ranked private school. That's Riverdale Baptist, which is ranked number 3, and they lost that game. But they were 10-0 against competition in their league there, and they outscored their opponent 638-20. They did have a playoff game where they beat Edison 75-7. They led 75-0 at halftime. This is a public school, and they hired a coach who brought in a whole bunch of his players, and the idea was to win. Now, I was not a good athlete, and I went to Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, which had great basketball teams, but football was not highly regarded. The best athletes didn't go out for football, but I had a high school experience of being on the football team. If it was a situation like this, I wouldn't have made the team, and it would have been just guys who were coming in as kind of mercenaries. They're not paid or anything, but, why were they transferring to that school? Not because of the academics or a special program. They were there because the coach brought them with him. And, yeah, it works that way in college now, but they get paid. And they don't get paid in high school, but the administration, went along with this. They I'm sure had to approve all the transfers that went in. So anyway, there was an injunction filed, and they were handed a 2-year postseason ban by the Virginia High School League, and then a group went to court and tried to get it so they could get back, and as I say, the injunction so they could get back to playing. And there was a playoff game that was scheduled tonight, but yesterday the principal of the school, Darren Thompson, withdrew the team from the playoffs because of the ongoing investigation that's going on. And it should. I mean, this is not in the spirit of what high school sports is all about. Overton was contacted, the coach who brought these players in. He says, everyone is concerned about other kids and other parents. Nobody really seemed to care about our kids and our parents. Well, reap what you sow here, pal. And then asked whether the events of the postseason will affect his future at Hayfield. He's gone, by the way. He's not going to be there. He's going to go someplace else and do this for sure, and maybe bring his players with him. He said he was more concerned for his players, but he plans to be back next fall. I'm fine. Of course, you're fine, but what you did was you took a bunch of kids from that high school who probably would have made the team, and they were shoved out of the way so you could bring your players with you from where you were and won 2 straight championships, and you're there to win. That's not what high school sports are supposed to be about. Maybe it's college sports, okay? And it's professional sports in college now. It's certainly that way in professional sports. It shouldn't be that way in high school. If you're a student at that school, you should have the opportunity, a realistic opportunity, to make the football team if you want to and play football. And I'm sure there were some kids that made it because they have more than the players that he brought in as transfers. But the kids who go to school there should have an opportunity to play. And, they didn't make any cuts when I was in high school. I wasn't going to make any other team. I wasn't going to make the soccer team. They were good. Certainly wasn't going to make the basketball team. Wasn't going to make the baseball team. But I could make the football team. And I had the experience of doing that. And I'm sure a lot of kids at that school, at Hayfield High School, never had the opportunity because the big-time coach coming in from someplace else with a big haul of his star players, hey, I'm going to give you lots of playing time. And they did this actually at my kids' school at Wooten after they graduated. I saw this happen. They brought in a coach, and he brought in a bunch of transfer students from private schools, and the football team, I went to a game, they had like 25 players on it. That's not the spirit of what it should be. They had Trayvon Diggs on that team, who's now playing for the Cowboys. But that really wasn't to me anyway what high school sports should be about. Greg Olsen, great tight end for many years in the NFL with the Bears and the Panthers. Now an analyst, got bumped aside for Tom Brady, which I don't understand why. I watched on Sunday. Brady doesn't really do it for me. Olsen, I thought, did a great job doing the Commanders game on Sunday, and this was him yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show on just how wild that game was, especially at the end.
I think it was really just the contrast of that fourth quarter, 41 points, how those 41 points were scored were just, it was absolute chaos. But it really came after a pretty pedestrian 2.5, 3 quarters. Like nobody really could get anything going. It was red zone field goals that were a circus to begin with. We couldn't make field goals, couldn't make extra points leading up to that. And then the fourth quarter just got insane. Special teams plays, both good and bad. 86-yard, in essence, Hail Mary type plays in desperation mode that go for touchdowns. It was just, I can't say I've ever seen a sequence of events that culminated with an ending like that, all in one quarter, all down the stretch, maybe ever, at least in a game that I can remember.
And you bring up a great point. Sometimes we go, boy, that was a great game. It wasn't a great game, but it was a great finish. It was a great final quarter. When you guys get together with the Commanders during the week and you sit down with Jaden Daniels, how much are you allowed to ask about how healthy he is with those ribs? Because it certainly looked like their game plan was different with those ribs, that they weren't going to put him out there running.
Yeah, I think yesterday was probably the healthiest he's been, and it was probably the most that they had been willing to activate him as a design runner that we've seen at least through the last couple weeks. So when you go back to the Philly game and the Pittsburgh game before that, their previous 2 losses, they weren't using him as a runner at all. So I think yesterday he had the nice touchdown run in the third quarter. That was a really nice design, really nice play there off the left side. Had a few other nice ones. He ran a speed option in the first half for a big pickup for a first down, couple scrambles. So I think yesterday was the healthiest he's been in a long time. It seemed like they kind of ran the entire offense through him as they were earlier in the season. It's really just their inability to get the ball downfield. That's the big problem that they're having. And the irony is, it kind of at the end of the game in desperation mode, when they needed a 2-minute score and a 2-point conversion down 11, they got it, throwing the ball downfield, attacking. And then, of course, the Terry McLaurin 86-yard touchdown in desperation mode was another one. So they opened it up there at the end of the game, and I just think they need to do it more.
How do you explain what Dallas did? And I don't know if this is more on the Commanders or you give credit to the Cowboys.
I think it's probably, as like anything, I think it's a combination of both. But I give Mike McCarthy and that Cowboys group a lot of credit. I mean, they were reeling. And then they come into that game yesterday, and they're excited to get Deron Bland back. They're all-pro corner. He had missed the entire season with a foot injury. They get him back. They get Parsons back. But then they lose Diggs. Trevon Diggs, he was out due to injury. But it was really the offensive side of the ball that we knew going in was just really down a lot of guys. They had CeeDee Lamb, and then it was a lot of backups. They're missing Tyler Smith, missing Zach Martin, rotating at left tackle. They thought Brandon Cooks was going to come back. He ended up being out another week. And, of course, Cooper Rush taking over for Dak. So they showed a lot of life. They made plays where they had to. Schoonmaker, again, the backup tight end to Jake Ferguson. He makes the big touchdown there in the end. So it was really a good effort, but it was special teams, it was defense, and it was offense. And it was really more the recipe that we're used to seeing from this Dallas team that's had a lot of success. Take the ball away, make splash special teams plays, and then obviously get the offense going. So that's what they did yesterday, and I think they deserve a lot of credit.
I'll tell you, Greg Olsen is not the only one who's impressed with Mike McCarthy and the job he did here over the weekend. Jerry Jones, doing his regular radio show this morning on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, said he is not ruling out a contract extension for Mike McCarthy. Quote, "I don't think that's crazy at all. This is a Super Bowl winning coach. McCarthy has been there and done that. He has great ideas. We got a lot of football left." I don't know. I mean, yeah, what do they got? 6 games left to go. If they win out, which doesn't seem likely with Cooper Rush, they're 4-7 on the season. If they, well, yeah, I guess if they finish 10-7, and we have seen the Commanders, Washington Redskins, whatever they were, win out when they had 6 to go. If they win out with 6 to go and he finishes 10-7. Yeah, Jerry seems to like this setup. I mean, I don't know how you sell that to the fan base, but maybe Jerry doesn't care. Maybe he comes back. Wow. More from Greg Olsen yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. And I thought this was an interesting question. This kind of came out of nowhere for me. He asked Olsen, who is a player, played a long time in the league, over 10 years, maybe 12 years, as a tight end in Chicago and in Carolina, are you aware of the point spread when you take the field?
When I played, I couldn't tell you if we were favored, underdogs, what the over-under is. I've actually learned more about it in the broadcasting world just because you hear it more. And there is an element to these guys who do make these spreads and do make these. It's amazing how close they always are. Like the way they look at the game from points, yards per play, and efficiency numbers, they kind of look at it as more of like a math equation than they do just like X's and O's on the field. But yeah, I think if you pulled 99+% of the players in the league, they couldn't tell you. But obviously we know with fans and the way it's obviously become just the fabric of everything on Sundays. I think it's part of the popularity of the game. I think people are interested now in games. They might not be fans of those teams, but obviously they have vested interest in the outcome or at least the score. So I think it's changed the way people watch the game. I think it's brought a lot of interest nationally as opposed to just following your regional team. And, but yeah, I don't think it's something that players are aware of really to any degree.
Yeah, see, I don't know if you can have day-to-day life in the NFL and not be aware of what's my over-under for yards in this game. Or, I mean, it's there. It's all over social media. I don't know how you could go into a game now in today's environment and that everybody's allowed to talk about it. Everybody's encouraged to gamble and not know, hey, you know what? We're favored by 2.5 tonight. Like, it's there.
And maybe they are nowadays. When I was playing, obviously it was a very different landscape. Like fantasy football was what we were all aware of. You'd be in the grocery store and the lady behind you in the line. I'm playing in Chicago and the old lady in line, you think she's going to tell you great game because you just beat the Packers or whatever, the Lions or whatever. And she's like, you cost me my fantasy because you only caught 2 balls. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's not what I was expecting you to say. So like that was the era like I played in, and then daily fantasy became a thing, and it's kind of evolved from there. But yeah, I mean, I remember those days early in my career trying to figure out like, are we happy that I won, but I didn't have enough catches? And then on the flip side, you had a big game, but then the team you're on lost. Were you happy? That was a rude awakening when I first got in the league. Fantasy football was probably at its highest level.
That's Greg Olsen yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show, and the big difference for me anyway between fantasy football and gambling. People can get upset if he only catches 2 balls and ruins their fantasy team for a week. But when you're talking about money being lost in gambling, significant money, it's a different thing. Last part from Olsen, who I don't think he's a Hall of Fame tight end, but he had an excellent career. The last question from Patrick yesterday was, who's the best tight end of all time?
If you would have told my younger self that anyone was ever going to beat Tony Gonzalez, that was like the guy we all grew up watching in high school and college, and had a chance to overlap with him for a few years in the league and get to know him. Tony was always at the top of the mountain. The longevity, the consistency, and then of course just the sheer volume of yards and catches and touchdowns just seems so incomprehensible that anyone would ever approach it. Then Gronk came along and he did it again different. Could do the run blocking, physical, one of the most prolific guys. Obviously him and Brady kind of rechanged how people. He didn't have quite the longevity to approach those numbers. And now you enter a guy like Kelsey. I think we've gotten to the point where Kelsey's in that argument of saying he passed Tony, and he might not ever reach the final numbers. I don't know how long he's going to play, but when you start talking 7 years in a row of 1,000-yard seasons, then you factor in the postseason success that he's had and the amount of wear and tear in games and catches and yards in the postseason. That's kind of where him and Gronk have kind of separated from a lot of the other guys at the top of the list. So it is hard for me to put anyone above Tony, because that was the guy like I really looked up to and idolized through my career as a young player. But I think Kelsey and Gronk have kind of entered that, and I think Kelsey might be pulling away.
Well, Kelsey, I think of Travis Kelsey I think of him more like a wide receiver than a tight end. Not that he's not great, and certainly the 3 Super Bowl championships might put him over the top. Tony Gonzalez never played in the Super Bowl. He played most of his career in Kansas City and some in Atlanta, and neither team made it while he was playing there. But I think that the way the tight end position has been defined, I think the prototypical tight end is John Mackey. He's probably better known now, unfortunately, for the concussions and the foundation that's the 88 Foundation, where they give money to people who are suffering from CTE. But he was a tight end in the mold that I remember. A big guy, sort of like Gronk, could run people over. Was a great run blocker as well as a pass catcher. And once he caught the ball, players just used to bounce off of him. He was that good, but he doesn't get the recognition because he played in a different era. And Jerry Smith, who played for the Redskins and did a lot of the things that we see Kelsey doing now, he didn't get the credit for it either. He was never the leading receiver for the Redskins. It was usually Charlie Taylor who had, and in those days, if you had a 50-catch season, that was a good season. Now it's got to be over 100. The numbers are just so different. But, you could probably make a case that Kelsey's the best of all time, but there are others who had similar styles to what he does, and they're totally forgotten and will never get consideration for the Hall of Fame. And that's one of the problems I really have with the Hall, is that it's just really so subjective, and it's hard to judge eras, and you put numbers up against times, and baseball is going to trend in this way too. Nobody's ever going to win 300 games again. They're not going to get enough starts. They're not going to get complete games. It's not going to happen. But it used to be that was a standard number. 500 home runs. Okay, the home run numbers have changed, so 500 home runs maybe is not going to be as big a deal down the road. Who knows? But I feel bad for some of the guys who played in the past, and the discussion of who's the best ever at tight end is focused around, pretty modern era players, Tony Gonzalez and Travis Kelce. All right, coming up, it was 27 years ago today that the Capitol Center said goodbye to the Capitals. We'll look back on that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.
This was inevitable. At home earlier this year, North Carolina gave up, I think, 70 points to James Madison, and could have been a bigger blowout than that. They could have scored 90 the way that game went. And Mac Brown, who had a great run at North Carolina and then went to Texas and won a national championship in what is, to me anyway, the greatest sporting event I've ever seen live. The Texas USC Rose Bowl in 2006. Vince Young, just absolutely spectacular game. And Texas won the national championship that year. After his run at Texas ended, he went back to North Carolina, and it was good to have him back there because he had, built the program into something, very significant before he left for Texas, and had some pretty good years. But this year, man, and this is what all of us face at an older age, how long do you stay? Do you stay until it becomes bad? And unfortunately for him, that's what happened. He stayed maybe a year, maybe 2 years too long, and the landscape changed. It's different in college football now. They didn't have the transfer portal and NIL and the way things work these days. And he's an older guy. He's in his mid-70s. And, to see it end like this for him, kind of sad. A good man and really revered by people who played for him and worked with him. And best of luck as he goes off into the sunset after a great coaching career. Speaking of coaching, I meant to get to this. This was a story over the weekend from Nikki Jabala on Joe Witt Jr., who's the defensive coordinator for the Commanders. And they've actually, after a really rocky start where the offense was totally carrying the team, they've played a lot better. They, gave up a lot of points on Sunday. Some of that was, special teams, gaffes, and things like that. But overall, I'd say after a rocky start, he's done a good job. And just interesting to hear the way that careers develop and so forth. And he had been a player at Auburn and got hurt, and his father was a coach there. and his father encouraged him to become a student assistant while he was finishing up his degree. They did not really want him to go into coaching. Both of his parents had, struggled as his father went from place to place, which is, what you do in the coaching profession. They didn't necessarily want that for him, but he loved it, and he stayed with it. And by 2009, he became an assistant coach with the Green Bay Packers when Dom Capers was the defensive coordinator, and Witt was promoted from defensive quality control to cornerbacks coach. And he's in a room, and this is funny how these things work in professional sports. He's in a room with Charles Woodson and Al Harris. Woodson's in the Hall of Fame, and Harris is a Pro Bowler, and both of them were older than he was. And the Packers started the season 4-4, including a loss to the previously winless Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Woodson and Harris, looked at him and thought, well, why are we listening to you? So he said to them, look, for 1 week, just do everything I asked you to, everything I ask you to do. And he said, if it doesn't work, guess what? They'll fire me, and someone else will be here. They ain't getting rid of y'all. And Woodson and Harris agreed to that. The Packers won the next 5 games, went to the playoffs. Woodson earned Defensive Player of the Year, and they are all 3 still close friends to this day. And it's funny how the coaching fraternity works out. But that's maybe that tells you something about Harris, that he's got the chutzpah to stand up to a future Hall of Famer in Woodson and a Pro Bowler in Harris and say, yeah, I need you to do it my way. And if you don't do it my way, it's okay because they're going to fire me anyway. So good for him. And sometimes it's a move like that, which really cements you as a coach. And I think it did for Witt, who I think overall, considering the start that they had, has done a pretty good job here. So, as you know, we have had the Capital One Arena started out as the MCI Center in December of 1997. The Wizards played the first game there, and it was against Seattle, which is how the Capital Center had opened in 1973, also in December 2nd, which was significant because it took a while to get the Capital Center open. We didn't have hockey then, but we had the Bullets, who had moved from Baltimore. They were the Capital Bullets, but they didn't have a home court until December, so they played their games at the University of Maryland. They played at then Cole Fieldhouse to start that season. Then they moved into the Capital Center. A few days later, the Capitals played the first hockey game there, and I remember being there that night, which was really cool. I think they went into overtime and won the game. But on this day, November 26th of 1997, the Capitals hosted the Montreal Canadiens. Ole Kolzig was the starting goalie. Montreal had a 5-3 lead heading into the second period, and Kolzig got pulled after giving up 5 goals on only 20 shots, and Bill Ranford came in to start the third period. Capitals got it to 5-4, and then Mark Tenorti had a goal 8:30 into the period, and the Capitals pushed late, but they were not able to tie it. Tenorti's goal would stand as the final goal at U.S. Airways Arena. So if you're looking for trivia, Mark Tenorti scored the final goal. The Canadians ultimately won 6-5. And Tenorti, as will always be credited with the final goal, with Dale Hunter and Kelly Miller assisting on the goal. Mike Gartner had the most goals as a Capital at U.S. Airways Arena, then Capital Center, which became U.S. Airways Arena, 226, the all-time leader in assists, 221 in points, 447. And Donnie Beaupre had the most wins as a goalie. I wouldn't have expected that, but it was Donnie Beaupre who had 70 wins as a goaltender at U.S. Airways Arena. Now, the interesting thing about that team is that they go to the MCI Center for the rest of that season, the 97-98 season, and it's the first year that the team gets to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they're playing the Detroit Red Wings. And, they built a fan base in Landover. They drew very well. The Capitals drew well at the Capital Center, and it was a fan base that was largely from PG County, not necessarily from an area where they could get easily to the city. Being on the Beltway actually was beneficial to the Capitals. Didn't really help the Bullets too much. They didn't draw very well, even when they were good, even when they won the championship in 78 and went back in 79. Didn't draw that well, but the Capitals always did. So, here they are, a team that makes it further than they'd ever gone before, getting to the Stanley Cup Finals in 1998, but they're not drawing well because the fan base, which is used to going out to the Capitol Center on the Beltway, isn't making the trip downtown, isn't taking the Metro, isn't paying the high parking rates to park downtown, and this is the best team they had. And I've said this many times, I remember being at Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals with my son in 1998 playing Detroit. They got swept, and if you looked around the building, it was 60% Red Wings fans. That they had bought the tickets. I think it sold out, or it may not have even sold out. It was really strange. So it took a while for the Capitals to get a foothold where they are. Now, you go to a game now, I don't know if they completely sell out, but it's pretty close, and the seats are full, and everybody's wearing a red jersey. But it took some time to do that, and winning a Stanley Cup certainly helped, but they've always been a good team. They've been a good team since Rod Langway got here in 1982, and it was on this day, and the final day at the Capitol Center, where they retired Langway's number 5. He played his last year, I believe, in 93 with the team. So his number went up there with Devon and Bray, and they've since retired Mike Gardner. And, of course, someday there will be a number 8 hanging up there. Anyway, I will be here tomorrow. Hopefully you will be as well. Bram is coming up next. And, again, I'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.